question is, oh, can I even hold up this stack? Oh my God. Oh, we're not gonna make it, friends. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Em, and today we are here to film my September wrap-up. I read 24 books in September, and when I tell you, the idea of sitting down and working through a stack of 24 books and talking to you about them sounds like the most unappealing thing I could possibly do with my time. I'm sorry, I just don't like filming wrap-ups. And I need to find a way to make this fun, and Jan Agaton does reread, rewrite, and burn with her wrap-up, and I think that is such a fun and creative idea. Like, honestly, Jan is so creative with her YouTube channel. Like, I am just in awe every day, and I by no means want to completely copy her concept because that's not cool, but I am inspired by her, and I am sure this is also not an original concept. I am sure there are other booktubers who do this with their wrap-ups, but today I'm going to be doing the rankings, and we are going to be playing FMK with this September wrap-up. So I've got my jar of titles, and we're just going to go through, I'm going to draw, and we're going to make some tough decisions. So let's jump in. First up, we are going to have Illuminations and Yale Needs Women. Oh no, this is a bad idea. I gave all of these pretty high ratings. Everything's like a 4 or above. Okay. All right, I am going to kill Illuminations. This is by T. Kingfisher. This is one of her books that kind of straddles middle grade and YA. I believe it takes place in the same universe as A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, though I would need to go back and reread A Wizard's Guide to know for sure if that's accurate. And we are following Rosa, who is what's the magic system called? I can't remember what it's called, but in this world, artists can paint pictures or murals, or illuminations is what they're called, as spells. And so if you wanted to keep mice out of your house, there's like a very specific illumination that you would hire one of these people to come and paint in your house. And one day Rosa is exploring her house, and she accidentally opens up a box that had a illumination on it, and she released a scareling. And along with releasing the scareling, she releases a illumination of a crow from the box, and then the crow's name is Pain, and she and Crow set about trying to capture the scareling to put it back before it can cause too much damage to her family. And it's T. Kingfisher, so like the writing was very comforting, very cozy. The crow, Pain, was my favorite. His obsession with shiny objects was so fun, but this is also like a very forgettable book for me, and I don't feel like this is not going to be in my top tier ranking of T. Kingfisher books. This is definitely one that I'm gonna, when I go back to look at, you know, the list of T. Kingfisher books in a couple of years, this will be one where I'll struggle to remember whether or not I read it. And then I'm going to fuck Yale Needs Women. This is a really great nonfiction book that I read for Wheel of Doom, and it's about the first group of women who got to attend Yale in 1969, 1970, and 1971, and it's about a few key women, about their personal experiences of being one of the very few women who were attending Yale. I think the first class of women, there were like 200 women and like 1,000 men at Yale. But I found this really informative, really interesting, and I listened to it on audiobook, and it was such an easy read. I read this in one day. And then I don't think anybody's surprised. I'm going to marry Witch Hat Atelier because I just love this manga series. It's so cozy. It's so sweet. I love the themes of found family and friendship and believing in yourself and believing in your friends. And I just love all these characters, and I love that we got to focus on Agate a little bit more in this book because I find her the most interesting out of all the apprentice witches. But in this series we follow Coco, who is an apprentice witch, and the other 3 witch apprentices that she lives with, plus the 2 witches that are their mentors. It wasn't too bad. I feel like I made it feel worse. All right, next up we have Once and Future, The Stolen Throne, and Camp Sylvania. I'm going to kill Once and Future. Even though I really love this series, this comic series, a graphic novel series, I never know what the difference is between a comic and a graphic novel. But anyways, I really love this series. It's a kind of futuristic King Arthur retelling where it's modern day England, and Arthur has been resurrected as like a zombie, but he's actually like horrifically racist and xenophobic. And so these people are trying to stop him from wiping out everyone who is not white and British from the British Isles, basically. And like I said, I really love it, but it's definitely a series that I forget to keep up with. And so I kind of forget that I'm reading it every once in a while, even though I really like it. It is really dark and violent, and a lot of content warnings for a lot of things, but I think it's a really fun take on a King Arthur retelling. And then I am going to, this is so weird, because it's middle grade book, but I'm gonna fuck Camp Sylvania by Julie Murphy. This was really fun. I read this on ebook. It's a spooky middle grade about Maggie, who is all set to go to this summer theater camp with her best friend, and then the night before she's supposed to leave, her parents tell her that, oh no, they signed her up for fat camp instead, and she's pissed. Rightfully so. And so she goes to this fat camp, and then everything is just weird. They have to eat, like, the cafeteria only serves red food. They have to eat this high in iron diet. The exercise stuff is really intense and unpleasant. And then only like 15 kids are allowed to swim in the lake at a time. And of course it's really hot that summer. And then they are going to do a play, but you know, it's just weird, and the adults are weird. And I'm sure you can tell by the cover and the title what is up with the camp, but it was really fun. It's a quick read. I had a good time. I think this would be a really fun spooky middle grade to throw in to the spooky season we are now in, because it was great. And I think I will continue with the series because I had a good time, and I want to see what other creatures or monsters Julie Murphy includes next. And then I am going to marry The Stolen Throne by Abigail Owen because I am currently obsessed with Abigail Owen's books. This is the sequel to, I always forget what it's called. The Liar's Crown. It's YA romantasy. This is why I thought I was in a YA romantasy phase. Not all romance fantasies, basically. I thought this was a duology. Joke's on me. It's a trilogy, so, you know, that'll be fun. Fun for me. I have another book to look forward to. And this is about Marin, who is a twin sister, and she's a princess, but in this kingdom, the second born twin girls are raised to be the decoys for the firstborn heirs. So she's grown up kind of in secret, knowing that she is going to have to be her sister's body double, her stand-in, her protector. And then on the eve of her sister's coronation, Marin is kidnapped by somebody who thinks Marin is her sister. And that's the setup for book one. And so book two is just kind of continuing, trying to bring down this immortal king who is intent on wiping out Marin's family line. And I didn't have as much fun with this one as I had with The Liar's Crown, but it was still a good time. There was less romance in this one than I wanted or I was hoping for. So I'm hoping in book three we get more romance, because the romance, great. Love it so much. Next we're going to do Yona of the Dawn. Oh, okay, it's right there. Okay, The Sublime Miss Stacks. And small things like these. Oh, this is an interesting combo. Okay. Oh, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to, hear me out. I'm going to kill Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't like it. I gave it 4 stars or 4.25 stars. This is a very lovely little book that follows this Irish man in the week or so leading up to Christmas as he goes about like the very mundane day-to-day of his life, and he is contemplating his family, his childhood, the way he was brought up, his privilege, and he discovers a young girl locked in the coal cellar of a convent outside of town, and it kind of kickstarts this series of events in his life. And this taught me something about Irish history that I didn't know was a thing, and I was very heartbreaking but also very interesting. And like, I'm interested in learning more now about Irish history, especially specifically in the like 1980s, and I think the time around the Troubles, and just the Troubles in general, because I haven't really delved into that kind of nonfiction rabbit hole yet. But I thought the writing was really beautiful, and the reflections were really poignant and sweet without being saccharine. And I wasn't intending to pick this up, but I needed a book for a buzzword readathon prompt, and I knew this was going to be short, and I thought it was very, very lovely. But I will be killing it for the purpose of this video. And then I am going to marry The Sublime Stacks by Rob Perlman. Yes, this is a picture book. However, I also got behind on the Betty Page's Challenge Your Shelf challenge, and I can't remember what month this was for, probably September. I didn't want to read anything on the September list, and anything I did want to read I had already read, and I wasn't really in a mood to reread anything at the time. So this was the only thing that I hadn't read that I was even kind of interested in reading, and it is a picture book about a librarian who is bringing the magic to story time, and there is a twist at the end, and it was very sweet and very cute and very colorful, and it was kind of fun to have it in the house because my youngest, who's 9, picked it up after I had read it, and then was like, "Mom, did you see what happened at the end?" So that was a fun conversation to have with them. So yeah, I didn't rate this because it is a picture book, but I am counting it towards my reading goals. And then I guess I'm going to, what did I say for Sublime Misstacks? Did I say Mary? I must have said Mary. I guess I'm gonna fuck Yona of the Dawn Volume 1 by default. This is Volume 1, I said that already, of a manga series about a princess named Yona who's, yeah, she's got a lot of stuff going on. She's in love with her cousin, which we can talk about that later. There's some weird, like, sexual chemistry going on with her personal bodyguard named Hawk, who I really liked. And then her father is assassinated and she has to go on the run, basically. Yona is complicated. She is very young. She is selfish. She is impulsive. She is kind of a brat, but this is such a fun, like, soap opera-y time. I think I'm going to continue on in the series because this was really fun, even if most of the time I was reading it I was going, what is happening? But I had fun with it, so I will be continuing. And I've heard the romance between Yona and Hawk gets good, so that's good. I would like a romance in a manga. I think there's one book I forgot to write a slip for because it wasn't in my reading journal. I had logged it on Storygraph, but I'd forgotten to put it in my reading journal, and that's how I made my list. So I may be adding in a book at the very end. All right, so for now we got Shark Heart, People Collide. Oh, that's gonna be easy. And The Brothers Hawthorne. Okay. I am gonna kill People Collide by Isle McElroy. I dislike this book so much. I gave it 2 stars. It is literary fiction about a husband and wife who switch bodies. There's no explanation for how or why they switch bodies. There's no rhyme or reason for it. And it's supposed to be this exploration of gender, and like gender fluidity, but it was weird. It was weird. Nothing happened. Nobody was likable. And I didn't even feel like the thought experiment of gender fluidity reached its full potential. Like, Isle McElroy had so many instances to really dive into that, and instead just kind of kept glancing on it, and then had like one really awkward encounter or conversation about trans people, but then like even that didn't play out in a way that was helpful or insightful. It was just kind of clunky and clumsy, and so I deeply deeply disliked this book, which was so unfortunate because I liked the beginning of it so much. And the reason it's a 2-star and not a 1-star is because I did like the writing style and the writing. I just didn't like what they did with their writing, basically. And then I am going to I'm going to fuck the Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, more so because of my love for the rest of the books than for this one. I gave this one, I think, a 2.5 or 2.75. I felt like this one was unnecessary. It was too long. And in my opinion, it focused on the wrong Hawthorne boys. This is book 4 in this series. And in the first 3 books, we're following Avery, who inherits this fortune from this Texas billionaire who she's never met before. And part of the stipulation of the will is that she has to live in his house for a year with his family, which includes his 4 grandsons who are all around Avery's age. And there's a little bit of a love triangle between her and Jameson and Grayson, who are 2 of the brothers. We get kind of the full arc of Avery's story in the first 3 books, and then this book is from Jameson and Grayson's perspective in like the time period immediately following the end of book 3. And I just feel like they are the least interesting of the brothers, in my opinion. I feel like if Xander's POV had been included, I would have enjoyed this a lot more because Xander is my favorite and he does not get enough page time, in my opinion. But this one was just, it was so over the top and it was so dramatic, and it felt way too long. I was reading this book for forever, and it should not have taken me that long because these chapters are so short. I should have flown through this book, and instead it took me like a week and a half, and that's just too long for a book like this. And then I am going to marry Sharkheart by Emily Habak. Even though this wasn't my favorite either, I really liked the beginning. It's about this husband and wife, and in this world there is a genetic mutation where humans can slowly turn into animals, and each like type of animal that they can turn into is a different diagnosis, has a different name. And this Lewis gets the diagnosis that he's going to be turning into a great white shark. And I loved the beginning as Lewis is going through his transformation. But when I picked this up, I didn't realize that motherhood was such a big theme of this book. And that story really starts taking over. Lewis's transformation is done by like the 50% mark. And then we spend the rest of the book examining this other character who the wife is friends with, who is pregnant with twins who have already been diagnosed with this genetic mutation. And then we're also following Ren's journey with wanting to be a mother herself. And then we flash back in time and we follow Ren's mother and like her childhood and then her experience as a mother and having Ren. And I don't like books where motherhood is a big theme. They just never, I don't know, I very rarely like what other people have to say about motherhood, which is weird. But it's just one of those things, I just don't like it. I have it, it's one of those things where it's like, I have it enough in my own life. I don't need to also consume it in literature. And so I just don't like themes of motherhood. I also don't really like children in books. So even though I'm going to marry this one, it wasn't my favorite, but I did really like the writing style, and I loved the format of this. It was so interesting and creative, and I'm basically marrying it because I will read whatever Emily Habak writes next because I found her first project really interesting and creative and kind of a break from like traditional lit fic, at least as far as my experience is concerned. So that's why I'll marry it. Okay, next we have I Was a Teenage Slasher, Lunar Boy, and Class Act. Where is Class Act? Oh, I think one of my kids borrowed it. Okay. All right, I am going to kill Class Act by Jerry Craft. This is a middle grade graphic novel. It's book 2 in a series, but I think it's more of a companion than anything else. And we are following a group of students at a middle school in New York City, and I did really like this one. I thought it was very, not timely, but I think it's really relatable for a lot of middle schoolers to read. This definitely swings on like the older end of middle grade because these characters are in middle school and they are 12. And so they're talking about more, I mean, my 9-year-old has read it and had a good time with it, but I think I would recommend this more to kids who are already solidly in middle school rather than like an 8 or a 9-year-old. But like an 8 or a 9-year-old could pick it up and read it without there being anything that they shouldn't consume subject-wise. I did listen to this on audio because a full cast narration had just come out, and I think I would have been served better to read it physically because there are a lot of characters, and I struggled at the beginning of the audiobook to keep all of them straight because they didn't really introduce like a narrator character, which sometimes audio adaptations of graphic novels will do. They'll write in some narration to help you orientate yourself, and they didn't do that for Class Act, which is fine. It just took me a while to get my feet under me. Okay, what's next? Okay. All right, I'm going to fuck I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. This is not my favorite Stephen Graham Jones, but I still had a good time with it. This is set in 1989 in Texas, and we are following Tolly and his best friend, Amber? Is that her name? Yes. As Tolly slowly becomes a teenage slasher, basically. So story-wise, this wasn't my favorite. It actually took me a really long time to get into this book. What ended up saving it for me was the friendship between Tolly and Amber, and also just Stephen Graham's writing style. I love his writing style. I love the stream of consciousness. I love how fragmented the sentences are a lot of the time, and the ending really did it for me on this book. And then I'm gonna marry Lunar Boy. I had this is by Jess and Sin Wubowo, and I had this graphic novel on hold for so long. This is a YA graphic novel about a child who is discovered on the moon and adopted by this spaceship colony. And then when the child is, I think 11 or 12, he and his mom move down to New Earth because she is getting married. And then they have to navigate being in a new family, adapting to culture on Earth, which is very different from the spaceship culture in this futuristic sci-fi world. And there are just lovely, lovely conversations about gender and identity and acceptance and family. I think this is what my expectations were at when I heard People Collide was going to talk about gender fluidity, because this book does those conversations so well and in such a nuanced way that I think I was just expecting this level. And People Collide didn't have it, but Lunar Boy definitely did, and I highly recommend it. It made me cry, and a graphic novel has never made me cry before, but I cried reading this. It was so good. Almost there. We're almost there. Almost there. Da, 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 da. Okay, we have Let It Shine, Witches Run Amok, and oh no, Mrs. Milner Gets a Kitchen. Okay. Okay, that's fine. These were all high ratings too. All right, let's not start with kill because I don't know yet. We can start with marry. I am going to marry Mrs. Milner Gets a Kitchen. This is a historical romance novella set in 1960, I think, and we're following Marion, who has recently been divorced, and in her small, close-knit community that is very scandalous, and she is just trying to navigate raising her 2 children by herself and surviving the neighborhood gossip, and she decides to use the money from the settlement of her divorce to renovate her kitchen. And this is a romance between her and her contractor, whose name I've totally forgotten. Was it Caleb? I read a lot of historical romance with Caleb's in it this month, or was it Harry? I think it was Harry. Anyways, this was great. The writing was wonderful. I loved the characters so much. I loved how, I can't remember the author's name, but I love how she built the romance in this book. Like, this is one of my favorite romances I've read this year. Easy. It was so good. It was surprisingly more steamy than I thought it was going to be, but I thought the steamy scenes were handled really well. And this is one of the few exceptions of children in romance. I thought Jane Hadley, I think that's the author's name, I think she utilized Marion's children perfectly in this book. They weren't on page a ton. There was like a minor subplot involving one of her children, but I think the way it was handled was so well, the way the children were handled was so well done. Now, the reason this is not a 5-star is because of the way Marion handled the subplot with one of her children, because I hated how she handled it so much. Not how I would have handled it as a parent, basically. But otherwise, I really loved this book. And then I think I'm gonna kill Let It Shine by Alyssa Cole. Even though I really liked it, again, this is a historical romance novella, and we're following, what are their names? 2 characters in the 1960s who are childhood friends but lost touch and are just coming together again and are getting involved in the nonviolent protest movement of the civil rights movement. And I love Alyssa Cole. I love her writing. I loved this. I loved the romance. I loved how plot moved forward. It's only on the kill block because of the other books that are in this pile. But just know that I really liked this book. And I would definitely recommend this to other historical romance readers. And if you're also maybe not a historical romance reader, but you want to get started and you want a book where falling in love is not the only plot, I would definitely recommend this, because there is a lot of stuff going on in these 2 characters' lives, and they're navigating a lot of stuff with the civil rights movement, with their families, with their careers, with what they want to do with their lives. And I 100% believed that these characters were going to be together forever and we're going to take care of each other forever. It was so well done. And then I am going to fuck Witches Run Amok, The Oral History by Shannon Carlin. This is an oral history of the making of Hocus Pocus, which is one of my favorite movies. This is such a fun collection of interviews from various cast and crew members about the making of the movie. And I think it's great. I think if you are also a Hocus Pocus fan, I would definitely recommend this. And I think Shannon Carlin did a really good job of putting together excerpts from interviews that she conducted with cast and crew, but also interviews pulled from like different recorded interviews throughout the years, because there's some interviews from like the early 2000s or the late 90s or closer to when the movie was released. And so they talk about the casting, they talk about the script writing, the casting, getting approval to make the movie, hiring the director, filming, post-production, the release, the build-up of Hocus Pocus becoming a cult classic, and then they touch a little bit on Hocus Pocus 2 and that reception. So just a great, fun, quick read if you're a Hocus Pocus fan. Next up, we're gonna do The Examiner, A Tempest at Sea. Oh no, why are these hard? A Ruse of Shadows. Stop pitting 2 Lady Sherlock books against each other. Oh. Okay, well, dang. Well, I'm sorry to say it, but I'm gonna kill The Examiner by Janice Hallett. But I loved this. It was so fun. This is a murder mystery told in mixed media format. I listened to it on audio. Audio was excellent. There was a twist at the end that I did not see coming. There's a twist like 3/4 of the way, which I was not anticipating, but it didn't like knock me over. But there was a twist towards the end where I was like, whoa, I didn't see that happening. So it's very fun, spooky. I like that Janice Hallett sets this book up where you know somebody has died, and the examiner is going through like all the transcripts from these students communicating with each other and with their academic supervisor. So you're just like trying to figure out who has died as you're reading this book, because you know somebody, but you don't know who. So it was really fun. I loved it. I can't wait to read more Janice Hallett, and the mixed media format was just, it was so fun. Part of the reason I loved this was because of the mixed media format. The audiobook is full cast and it's done so well. It has such good production quality. And then I am going to let's do fuck first. I think I'm going to fuck A Tempest at Sea, because even though it was still 5 stars, I didn't love it as much on the reread as I did on the first time through. But this is book 7 in the Lady Lady Sherlock series, and the whole gang is being brought back together again, and the whole book takes place on this voyage they're taking from England to... Does it say where they're going? It doesn't say where they're going on the back. They're going somewhere on a ship. So, you know, it's like a locked room mystery. It was great fun. And yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Still favorite series. And then I will marry A Ruse of Shadows, because while it took me a little bit longer to get into this one than it typically does for Lady Sherlock, I think this is one that I will love even more on the reread, now knowing where it is leading and what is happening. And Sherry Thomas ties back to things that happened in book 1, 2, and 3 in this book in ways that I thought were really creative and really fun and full circle. And I just am in awe of Sherry Thomas's ability to build a mystery and to build a series where all the books are so interconnected, and that book 8 can wrap up a thread that I didn't even know was loose from book 1. This is excellent. I do not know where we are going to go from here. I'm curious how many books Sherry Thomas is planning this series to be, if she has a number for how many she's going to write, or how long we will keep going. But I thought this was a great installment. Oh my gosh, that worked out perfectly. We have 3 left for the last grouping. So we have Peter Cabot Gets Lost, Affair, and Lucy Undying. Oh, this is kind of a sad grouping for the last one. I am going to Kill Affair by Amanda Quick. This is a historical romance. I read this because at the time I was planning on doing a reading vlog where I read books that gave me the same vibes as the Twisters movie, but with smooching, because there's no smooching in Twisters, which I think is a travesty. Those two should have kissed. And they did kiss. They just didn't put the clip in the movie. Anyways, I'm not gonna get upset about it anymore. So I read Affair because I thought this would give me the adventure part of that romance. However, I have since scrapped that vlog concept, so sorry. It's just too hard to find books that I thought would fit, and then I wasn't enjoying what I was picking up, so I scrapped that project. But this is a historical romance that also had a mystery component. I've read Amanda Quick in the past and I have really loved her books, but this one was just kind of meh for me. I didn't feel like the two love interests had any chemistry. I didn't really like the mystery. The adventure was fine. I don't know. It was just kind of a meh book. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it. It's just kind of meh. So we're going to kill it. And then I guess I'm going to... Oh no. I guess I'm going to fuck Peter Cabot Gets Lost, which is ironic because there's a lot of fucking in this book. Or fitting, not ironic. Anyways, this is a historical romance. It's a road trip and we're following Caleb and Peter. Didn't have to look on the back, his name's right in the title. Who went to college together and then are road tripping now that college has ended from the East Coast to the West Coast. But they don't really like each other at the beginning of the book. So we have a very prickly character and then a kind of a more sunshiny character. But I like Cat Sebastian's prickly characters because they stay prickly the whole time. Like falling in love does not soften them or crank them in any way. Like they stay cranky the whole time. I didn't love how steamy this was. I felt like once they started having sex, they just had sex a lot. Like to the point where it almost felt like an erotic romance, because so much of their emotional vulnerability was tied to how much sex they were having. It's fine, but I just don't read erotic romance. So not my favorite Cat Sebastian, but like not my least favorite either. And then even though I didn't love it, I'm going to marry Lucy Undying by Kirsten White, partly because of my deep love for other Kirsten White books. I really liked the beginning of this. Oh God, it had such 5-star vibes at the beginning because we're following Iris, who is arriving in London under very mysterious circumstances, and you get right off the bat that there's like some not okay family history for her, and she's trying, and her mother has recently died, and she's trying to liquidate some assets so she can have some ready cash on hand. And she finds out that she's inherited, or her mom owns this British manor house that has been abandoned for years and years, and she go through and see if there's anything salvageable that she can sell. And she finds the diary of this woman named Lucy, like from Dracula. And so it's a mix of present day with Iris and then Lucy's diary entries from when she was a young girl, like about the time that Dracula takes place, or the events leading up to when Dracula takes place. And then we're also getting therapist transcripts of vampire Lucy. And the vibes are so good at the beginning. I think the big downfall for this book is that it's too long, and there's unnecessary parts in the middle where I don't know, if she cut out maybe 75 to 100 pages and it was like a 300-page book, and it was nice and tight and quick and to the point, and we didn't have like all this weird meandering stuff in the middle, then it definitely would have been a 5-star book. But it was just too long, and I lost interest towards the end. And but I loved the writing, the vibes, the characters for the most part. It was a pacing issue. I also think you need to have working knowledge of Dracula, the book, to really get anything out of Lucy and Dying. You need to have working knowledge of what happens in the book, because Kirsten White is definitely using that as her jumping off point, and she doesn't really hold your hand to help you figure out the context for what Lucy and Iris and other characters are talking about. But yeah. All right, friends, there you have it. That is my wrap up for September. I feel like even though we played a game, I feel like I talked so much longer about these books, but this was really fun for me. I liked this format way better than just having a stack of books and moving through them. And so, I don't know, I might do this again in October. We'll see. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any opinions about it being an FMK or an SMK. SMK, if you don't know, is Smooch, Marry, Kill. That's what I play with my kids. Clearly, they know it's FMK, but anyways. Yeah, let me know what you think, because I like FMK, but it felt weird to be pulling the F out when I was talking about a middle grader or YA book. So this may pivot to an SMK, but we'll see. We'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if you read any of these books, if you have any thoughts or feelings about these books. If you had a negative opinion about any of these, now is the time to tell me, because I told you in my September TBR not to tell me if you hated anything. Now you can tell me. And if you want to leave an emoji to let me know you were here, good gravy. Let's do a wolf or a dog emoji. And with that, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.